When Lin Hao opened his eyes quietly, his brain was still covered in mud. He remembered that he had just finished his night shift from the emergency clinic and was as tired as a dog. As a result, he stepped on empty feet and fell into the back door of the hospital, and then he didn't. Now, he looked down and saw that he was wearing a torn coarse cloth, a pair of straw sandals on his feet, and a firewood stick in his hands. After raising his head, there were mud roads and old thatched huts around him, and there was a fishy smell of livestock in the air. Bored, what's this? Lin Hao couldn't help but whisper. You little destitute, what are you stupid when you stand at the entrance of the village? Why don't you go home quickly? Don't be so stingy. A sarcastic voice sounded, and Lin Hao looked at him in a loud voice. He had a fat, big ears, full of flesh, staring at him with his eyes slanted. There were 2 dog legs along the way, and they were very energetic. Lin Hao's brain buzzed and instantly stormed a lot of memories that were not his. He traveled through time. The original owner of this body is also named Lin Hao. He is an orphan in this ruined village. His parents died long ago. He survived with some troubles in helping others. No one in the village looked down on him. The fat man in front of me was Zhang Daki, the bully in the village. He relied on his share of family background and bullied others. When he saw Lin Hao, he came to find fault every now and then. What are you looking at? Look at me again, I've dug your eyes. Zhang Daqian saw Lin Hao staring at him, his temper became even more intense, and he raised his foot and kicked Lin Hao over. Lin Hao had a flash of consciousness and hid this foot, and his heart was filled with fire. He is a modern man or an emergency clinician. He has never seen any big waves. How could he let such a fat man bully him? He sneered and opened his mouth. Zhang Daqian, look at his body before kicking someone, don't just step down and flick your waist. You! Zhang Dawei was so angry that his face was purple. The dog legs beside him rushed over to catch Lin Hao, but he was deceived by him. With this ability, can you dare to act wild in front of me? Lin Hao curled his lips, clapped his hands, and turned around and left. He didn't have time to talk to this help, and when the urgent task was to figure out his situation, and how to survive. But after walking for a few steps, a noise suddenly came from the entrance of the village. Several villagers carried an old man and ran to the village in panic, shouting, "Hurry up, find someone, Mr. Wang is not good." Lin Hao looked closely and saw that the old man's face was blue, his lips were purple, his breathing was weak, and his chest was almost invisible. It was obvious that there was a big problem in his heart. As an emergency clinician, he had seen too many such scenes and could not see himself as a destroyed person at the moment. Lima shook over, let him flat and don't be upset. The villagers were stunned for a moment and saw that it was Lin Hao. They were impatient. What do you know about a traitor? Don't make trouble here, just go. That's right, what kind of ability is installed? Old Wang is almost extinguished. Can you save him? Another villager also sneered. Lin Hao ignored them and squatted down, pressed his hand on the old man's chest, and began to press the pressure rhythmically. At the same time, he pointed at the person beside him with a low voice, "You, go find a clean cloth, and there is water, hurry up." The villagers were very concerned about each other. Although they didn't believe in Lin Hao, they seemed to be a little bit stuck in his arms. After hesitating for a moment, someone still ran to get something. Lin Hao was having a heart-to-lung rehabilitation, and observed the situation of his elders. After pressing for a few dozen times, the old man finally coughed and let out a breath, making his face calmer. Lin Hao took the opportunity to adjust his posture and let him lie on the side to avoid suffocation. Then he took the cloth from the villagers and simply cleaned up the dirt around the old man's mouth and nose. It's done! Lin Hao wiped his sweat, stood up, and relaxed his breath. The villagers around were all dumbfounded. Wang Laotao, who was just dying, had just passed by. Although he was not awake yet, his breathing was clear and stable. Was this really Lin Hao saved? Isn't he a broken man? Why did he do this? The villagers discussed the matter, and the look of Lin Hao's eyes changed from disdain to surprise, and even brought a little awe. Lin Hao felt secretly happy, and his face was lightly decorated. A small problem is no big deal. Take good care of him and don't be upset. After saying that, he clapped his hands and prepared to leave. But at this moment, a crisp sound came up. Brother Lin, what's your ability? It's so bad. Lin Hao turned his head and saw that it was a girl in her 17s and 18 years old, wearing coarse cloth clothes and a little dust on her face, but her eyes were shiny, full of worship. Her name is Xiao Chui, an orphan in the village. She usually has a relationship with Lin Hao, so she will occasionally give him some food. It's nothing, it's just a first aid. Lin Hao smiled, without much explanation. He knew that people in this era did not understand what heart restoration is, and it would be irritating if they talked too much. But Xiao Chui refused to let go and pulled his sleeve. Brother Lin, if you spread your skills, you will definitely be a doctor. Why not open a pharmacy? I will help you. Lin Hao's eyes lit up when he heard this. Yes, I am an urgent clinician at least. Modern medicine is a down-and-down attack in this era, opening a pharmacy to make some money, and starting a code to get a life first, right? Thinking of this, he pointed and said, okay, then you can help me see if there are any empty houses in the village first. Let's plan slowly. Xiao Chui faced down happily and ran to Zhang Luo. At this time, the dying old man Wang was carried home by his family, and the news also spread throughout the village. In less than half a day, the eyes of the villagers' eyes at Lin Hao changed. People took the initiative to say hello wherever they went, and even an ant stuffed them with chicken eggs, which was a thank you. Lin Hao held the chicken egg and felt happy. It seems that this first step of prestige is to stand up. But the good times didn't last long. Early the next morning, Zhang Daqian blocked Lin Hao's door with people. The place where this dilapidated house lived was originally a broken thatched hut, and there was no door. Zhang Daqian kicked the grass hut and shouted at the top of his throat, Lin Hao, let me come out. I heard that you saved Mr. Wang yesterday. What kind of doctor was wearing? I will expose you today. Lin Hao was squatting in the house and placing the medicine. When he heard this calmness, he glanced at him and walked out. Zhang Daqian, are you here to find trouble again? Everyone in the village was watching about Mr. Wang yesterday. If you don't believe me, go and ask. That's a big deal. I just know you're a snail. Zhang Daqian sneered and pointed at the dilapidated house behind Lin Hao. Look at your sourness, there is no such house, and you still want to be a doctor? It's so funny. Tell you that the floors in the village are all my own. If you put on a magic trick, I'll let you out of the village. Lin Hao heard this and sneered in his heart. What's wrong with the house being broken? I have modern knowledge, but are you afraid that I can't handle it? At that time, he didn't talk to Zhang Daqian and opened his mouth directly. Okay, Zhang Daqian. If you say my house is broken, then let's make a fortune. I have built this broken house more solid than yours within a month. If you lose it, you will knock me to the head. What's the matter? Ha ha ha, you are the only one? Build a house? Zhang Dahan smiled so much that his eyes were almost out, and he said with a head, okay, I will win you. If you can't do it in a month, I'll send me out of the village. Don't lose the eyes here. After saying that, Zhang Daqian took people away, leaving behind a group of villagers who were watching the hot discussion. Xiao Chui ran over at this time and stomped her feet in a hurry. Brother Lin, are you fucking Zhang Daqian? It's not that easy to build a house in our village. You can't afford to buy a tiled head. What kind of repairs are you going to do? Lin Hao grinned and patted Xiao Chui on the shoulder. Don't worry, I have a way. Please help me find a few people. Let's dig some sand on the river and get some limestone. I'll teach you something new. Although Xiao Chui was soaked in water, she still did it. That afternoon, Lin Hao was busy working around the river with several young and powerful villagers. Based on the cement production method in his memory, he instructed everyone to burn limestone into quicklime, then mix it with sand and water in proportion, and made a small pile of ash. Brother Lin, what can this thing be fucked? It looks like mud. Xiao Chui squatted aside and asked curiously. Don't underestimate this mud, you'll know in a few days. Lin Hao smiled mysteriously. took the man to the village and began to repair his thatched hut that collapsed. After a few days, the pile of dusty things actually solidified, and they were stuck hard on the outer wall of the house, not afraid of the wind and rain. The villagers were all stunned when they looked at the wonderland. What is this? It's more realistic than a tiled head. Lin Hao, where did you learn this from? It's so amazing. Lin Hao felt so happy when he looked at the admiring eyes of everyone. He clapped his hands and said calmly, "This is called cement, modern. This is the method I have figured out myself, and use this to build a house in the future to ensure the stability and save money." The news was revealed, and after Zhang Daqian heard it, he was so angry that he jumped straight into his head. He came to see that Lin Hao's broken house was indeed as well as a thorn, and his face was as dark as a bottom. "Zhang Daqian, why are you convinced?" Lin Hao stood in front of the house, hugged his arms, and smiled so hard that he deserved a beating. Zhang Daqian gritted his teeth and insisted on saying, "It's only been a few days, and it's still early for a month. I'll see how long you can be proud." After saying that, he left in shame. Lin Hao looked at his back and his heart began to count the next step. He knew that cement alone was not enough. If you want to stand firm and keep your feet firm, you still have to do some new styles. At this moment, Xiao Chui ran over and held an old letter in her hand. "Brother Lin, someone just sent a letter, saying that a big man in the city was sick and heard your reputation. He specially asked you to go and have a look." Lin Hao held the broken letter, raised his eyebrows slightly, and couldn't help but sniffing at the corner of his mouth. A big man in the city? This is a good opportunity. He was worried about how to expand his reputation, so he would be delivered to the door. "Xiao Chui, who sent this letter? Do you want to tell me clearly?" Lin Hao asked with his head down, turning the letter in his hand over and looking over. Although the words were crooked, he still understood the general idea. There was a rich customer in the city, and the old lady at home was almost ill. He heard that Lin Hao saved Wang Laotu and specially sent someone to ask him to take a look, and the clinic was opened by him. Xiao Chui blinked her eyes and shook her head. The person who sent the letter was an old man, dressed very hard. He didn't say much, just said that you would go quickly. If you were too late, you would be gone. "Brother Lin, do you really want to go? The city is not close to us, and you will be back for a day." "Go, of course." Lin Hao slapped his thighs, his eyes lit up as if he had lighted up. "This is a big job. Once cured, our reputation will be fully revealed, and the pharmacy can be opened directly. You can watch it at home, and I will move now." After saying that, he packed up some simple things, several homemade wooden signs for auditors, and several herbs wrapped in cloth, all dug from the mountain in these days, and they are hard to use together. Before leaving, he told Xiao Chui again, "I will find more sand and limestone. When the pharmacy is opened, there must be a place to store it. We have to continue to get cement and lay the foundation firmly." Xiao Chui pointed her head, although she didn't quite understand why Lin Hao was always thinking about the pile of dusty mud, but she still responded. Lin Hao trotted all the way, and after a long journey, he finally arrived in the city. The rich man's house was so arrogant that he stared at the door, and he looked like he was alive. When he went in, he saw that the yard was full of people, and his face was anxious. Seeing Lin Hao's ragged clothes, someone was browsing. "You are that doctor? You don't look like you." Lin Hao didn't say anything, and said directly, "Where's the person? Take me to see it. Don't regret it if you are too late." As soon as he said this, he was so strong that people dare not underestimate him, so he hurriedly led him into the inner courtyard. The old lady was lying on the bed, her face as white as paper, and her breathing continued. When Lin Hao pulled her back, she heard her heartbeat again, and there were so many horses in her brain. "This is heart failure, and there is probably a little lung water. There were no good medicines in ancient times, so I dragged it hard to get this way." He didn't say anything, but took out a few fine bamboo tubes from his bag, and after simple disinfection, he started to bleed and relieve pressure. He boiled some soup with herbs and put it in hard. After half a while of busy work, The old lady finally breathed a sigh of relief and opened her eyes quietly. Although she was still weak, it was obviously much better. Everyone in the room was stunned and said, "God, it's so God." The rich man was so excited that he took Lin Hao's hand and insisted on giving silver. Lin Hao slammed his hand and said with a smile, "No silver is needed. Give me some food and medicine. When I go back, I have to open the pharmacy to save more people." As soon as this was released, the rich man looked at him with admiration. Not only did he give food, but he also gave him a few more pieces of cloth, saying that he wanted to take it back to make clothes. Lin Hao was not polite, so he took over the things and returned to the village all night. When he returned to the village, it was almost dark. Xiao Chui was squatting in front of the broken room waiting for him. When he saw him carrying a lot of things on his back, his eyes lit up. "Brother Lin, how did you get such a good thing?" "He was cured." "It must be." Lin Hao grinned and put down the food and cloth. "The old lady in the city has been saved. Now our reputation has been spread. In a few days, I guess the doctors can trample the door." As expected, within 2 days, the village began to get hot. First, several old towns in the village heard that Lin Hao didn't need silver to treat his illness, just order food, and Lima brought the patient over. Lin Hao didn't pick on it. He would take care of everything as long as he could cure it. He didn't dare to do surgery, but he could cure half of the cases of fever, abdominal cramps, heart failure, relying on modern first aid knowledge and a few herbs. The news spread faster, and people from all over the country came to ask for medical treatment. Lin Hao's broken thatched hut could not be kept at all, so he simply built a shed on the open space in the village, which was a temporary medicine hall. After Xiao Chui was busy, she helped to grab medicine and cook soup. She was so tired that she was sweating profusely, but she smiled like a flower on her face. "Brother Lin, we are going to make a fortune." Lin Hao was so happy that he watched the people coming in the shed. But at this moment, Mayan also followed. The better the pharmacy business, the harder the face of Zhang Daqian is. He had seen Lin Hao not being so surprised. Now that he was famous, the villagers were all over him, and the jealousy in his heart was about to explode. Early this morning, Zhang Daqian came to the pharmacy with a few dog legs and shouted with a high voice, "Lin Hao, what kind of doctor do you have to wear? I smashed your broken shed today. Let's see how you will cheat." All the villagers who were seeing a doctor in the shed were stunned. Someone wanted to say something, but was stared at by Zhang Dajiao, so scared that he dared not speak. Lin Hao walked out of the head, his face calmly, and he looked at him with his arms in his arms. "Zhang Daqian, are you here to find trouble again? You didn't know how to make a payment last time, what do you want to fuck this time?" "I don't know. I'm thinking of you." Zhang Dajia sneered, raised his hand and slapped it. Several dog legs stood up behind him, and smashed the shed with a stick. The medicine was sprinkled all over the floor. The villagers who were seeing the doctor ran away in surprise. Xiao Chui's eyes were so hot that she clenched her fists and wanted to push them up, but was pulled by Lin Hao. He said in a low voice, "Don't be anxious, let them smash it. We have some methods to cure them." Zhang Daqian looked at the mess and laughed proudly. "Lin Hao, seeing that you are so disgraceful, do you still want to be a doctor? I tell you that the floorboards in this village belong to mine. If you dare to open a pharmacy, I will smash them every day." Lin Hao smiled coldly, and did not speak back. He turned around and pulled Xiao Chui to start cleaning up the situation. Although the villagers did not dare to help them openly, there were a few big guys who secretly ran over to help them with the medicine, and they were still not a good thing. Lin Hao has many in his heart. Zhang Daqian wanted to cut off his path, but I am a modern person, and there are many points in his brain. That night, he called Xiao Chui and said mysteriously, "Our pharmacy needs to be rebuilt, but this time it is not only solid, but also beautiful, so that people can see it as soon as they enter the village. I have a way, you can help me get some sand, the more the better." Although Xiao Chui was soaked in water, she still did it. In the next few days, Lin Hao brought a few disciples to burn the sand at the beginning of the village, heated up the sand at high temperature, and folded some mines, making a bunch of transparent things, glass. This thing was never seen in ancient times. Lin Hao held a thin piece of glass and shone in the sun, lit like crystal, and the villagers around him were stunned. "Brother Lin, what is this? Why is it so beautiful?" "This is called glass, which is even more rare than glass." Lin Hao said with a smile, "We use this thing as a window shop, and after the pharmacy is rebuilt, we will make some small bottles and bowls, and sell them in the city. We can exchange a lot of food and medicine." The villagers' eyes were straightened when they heard it. At that time, several young people volunteered to make glass with Lin Hao. Lin Hao didn't hide his personalities, and patiently taught them how to burn sand and control fire. After several days of life, he made a bunch of glassware. Although it was rough, he was sold in the city and changed it back to a car full of food. With resources, the speed of reconstruction of the pharmacy is amazing. Lin Hao used cement to lay the foundation, frame it, and embedded the glass windows. On the day the new pharmacy was built, everyone from the village came to visit. Although the shed was not big, the windows were as bright as palaces. When the sun shone, the room was shaking, which made people shocked. "This pharmacy is too grand and looks better than Zhang Dafa." Lin Hao's ability is simple, not a human being, but a god. The villagers agreed and their eyes were full of worship. Lin Hao felt so happy when he looked at the scene, but he did not forget the big money. If this person doesn't clean up, there will be more troubles in the back. So he secretly calculated a way to let Xiao Chui go and said that the pharmacy was newly opened, and he would have a free medical treatment for 3 days and also give medicine. As soon as the news spread, all the people from the village came, and all the villagers came, and the door of the pharmacy was leaking. When Zhang Daqian heard about this, his teeth were almost broken. He came over with a man on that day, trying to smash the field again. But this time, Lin Hao was ready. He dug several pits around the pharmacy in advance, putting thin soil on them, and buried some sharp stones in them, and letting several disciples stay by the side. When Zhang Dabao came, he deliberately provoked him. "Zhang Daqian, are you here to make trouble again? You can't just smash this pharmacy. If you have the ability, come in and try it." Lin Hao stood at the door, smiling so hard that he deserved a beating. Zhang Daqian could not bear this challenge. He brought someone to the scene, but when he stepped into the yard, he heard a hey sound. He stepped into the pit with 1 foot, and the sharp stone directly penetrated his straw sandals, making him scream in pain. The dog legs behind him wanted to pull him, but he fell in, and several people rolled into a group, fighting with all their strength, and the wolf was as swept like a dog. The villagers around could no longer help but laughter, and some people shouted, "Zhang Daqi, this is the report. I usually bully others, but now I'm in trouble." Lin Hao hugged his arms and walked slowly over, pretending to be kind. "Yi, Zhang, why are you so careless? Do you want me to treat your feet?" "Free, it's guaranteed not to hurt." Zhang Daowei was so angry that his face was green, and he couldn't say anything. He could only let someone help him and run away in shame. The villagers looked at his back and smiled even more. They ran over to thank Lin Hao, saying that they had given him more, and the village had a life of making a name for themselves. Lin Hao held his hand and said with a smile, "What are you thankful? We will have a long life in the future. When the pharmacy is opened, everyone can live a good life. Who should not want to bully us again?" As soon as this happened, the villagers were even more excited. Some people said they wanted to make cement and glass with Lin Hao on the spot. The aunt held his hand and insisted on introducing him to his wife. The scene was very hot. But at this moment, a horse hoof sound suddenly came from afar, and the sound was rapid, as if he was heading straight to the village. Lin Hao looked up and saw a team of horses, wearing armor, with extraordinary aura, and the leader of the horse was filled with frost on his face, as if he was coming from the battlefield. Xiao Chui pulled Lin Hao's sleeve and said in a short voice, "Brother Lin, these people don't look like ordinary people, what should I do?" Lin Hao narrowed his eyes and felt a sense of premonition in his heart. "I'm afraid this team is coming to find him, and it's a big shot." The team was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at the entrance of the village. The horses' hooves stopped and raised the scattered soil. Dahan, who was in charge, turned over the horse under his head. His armor was covered with scratches, his face was as white as paper, and there was still a trace of blood hanging on the corners of his mouth, which seemed to be unharmed. The few soldiers behind him were not much better, with a gray and earthy face, as if they had just fled back from the battlefield. Lin Hao's heart skipped a beat, and he guessed that this helper was not the ordinary people, but was probably the army of the court. He glanced at Xiao Chui and said in a low voice, "Don't panic, look at the situation first, don't talk." Xiao Chui was slightly stubborn, although she was scared, but she still stood beside Lin Hao, staring at the person who was coming with a vigilant look. The Dahan got off the horse, glanced at the villagers who were watching, and asked in a low voice, "Who is Lin Hao? I heard that there is a doctor in this village, so I will ask for something." The villagers were all concerned and turned their attention to Lin Hao. Lin Hao had a few in his heart. He took a step forward, clasped his fists and said, "I am Lin Hao, what's the cost of the army?" Dahan looked closely and saw Lin Hao wearing a coarse cloth. Although he was clean, he didn't look like a divine doctor at all, with a slight brow. But he didn't say anything and opened the mountain directly. "I am Li Yuan, a military commander from the imperial court who has conquered the north. When I passed by this place, I was ambushed by the enemy and was seriously injured. I heard that you are skilled in medicine and come to ask for help. If I can save my life, I will definitely be grateful." The voice fell, and a soldier behind him hurriedly supported him. It was obvious that Li Ling's army was not so weak that he even stood free. Lin Hao's eyes were sharp, and he could see at a glance that Li Yuan was bleeding under his chest and his breathing was rapid. It was probably because of internal injuries and excessive blood loss, which would not be delayed for long. "Don't talk, carry the person into the pharmacy first." Lin Hao didn't say much, and directly waved his hand and greeted several villagers to help. No matter what the court is not, he has to be nervous about saving people. Besides, this is a big opportunity. If the army is cured, it may be possible to get on the line of the court, so the future will be much better. Although the villagers were afraid, they didn't dare to listen to Lin Hao's words. They carried Li Yuan into the just-built pharmacy. The sunlight from the glass window shone bright in the room. When Li Yuan looked at the pharmacy, his eyes were straightened and he muttered in a low voice, "Why is this place so bright? It's more elegant than the doctor's hall in the city." Lin Hao had no time to take care of them and quickly checked Li Yuan's injuries. As soon as the armor was removed, there was indeed a deep bone-like wound on his chest, and the blood was almost impossible to stop. There were still a few bruises. It was probably because of the internal organs. His heart sank. This injury was basically bound to die in ancient times, but fortunately, he had modern first aid knowledge, so he gritted his teeth and could still try it. "Xiao Chui, go and burn the hot water, and get a few clean cloth strips, hurry up." Lin Hao pointed and took out a few fine bamboo tubes and a small bag of herbs from his bag. These were all emergency supplies he had prepared in the past few days. Xiao Chui's hands and feet were quick and she immediately went to prepare, and the atmosphere in the pharmacy suddenly became strong. Li Yuan was surrounded by the side, with an anxious face, but he didn't dare to speak out and swear. Lin Hao first used hot water to clean the wound, then used a bamboo tube to temporarily tick the tool, and used a fine line to cut the wound to stop the blood. Then, he crushed it with herbs and applied it to the wound, and simply wrapped it in the wound. After working hard for half a while, Li Yuan's face finally calmed down and his breathing became calmer. Although he was not awake yet, it was obvious that he had recovered his life. "It's done, it's okay." Lin Hao wiped his sweat, let out a breath, and turned to those few words, "But people still have to calm down for a few days, don't be disturbed, otherwise I don't guarantee that he can be good." After hearing this, he relaxed his voice. One of the young soldiers even knelt down with a sudden voice and said excitedly, "Drug, it's really a drug. If our soldiers can survive, we will definitely not forget your great kindness." Lin Hao held his hand and smiled and said, "Don't kneel down, get up. I don't mean to save people. But since you are a military member, you probably have a battle to fight later. I have a condition: if you cure your army, you will take me to the battlefield. How about it?" The soldier was stunned for a moment and immediately said, "That's good. As long as the army wakes up, we will definitely take you there. With such a skill as the Doctor of God, he will definitely save more people in the army." Lin Hao was happy in his heart, and he was silent on his face, and said, "That's it. You can stay here first. I'll take care of the medicine and feed him to the evening, so that he can wake up faster." After saying that, he pulled Xiao Chui out of the pharmacy and explained in a low voice, "You should watch more about the pharmacy in these days, so as not to let outsiders come in, especially Zhang Daiqian who helps others. Do you understand?" Xiao Chui was as snatched from the head, and her eyes were filled with admiration. "Brother Lin, your handcraft was so bad that you can save even the army. We must have a bigger reputation here." Lin Hao smiled, but he didn't answer, and he was just counting in his heart. Rescuing Li Yuan is the first step. If you can get involved with the army, your reputation as a doctor will be even further away, and you may be able to borrow the opportunity to do something big. He is not satisfied with being a young doctor in the village, and there are many opportunities in the world. Sure enough, 2 days later, Li Yuan woke up. Although he was still weak, he was already able to speak. As soon as he heard that Lin Hao saved him, he held his hand on the spot and said seriously, "Dr. Lin Shen, I will thank you for your kindness. I will owe you a life. From now on, what's your business? Just come and find me." Lin Hao replied with a smile, "It's awesome to the army. I heard that your army is fighting against the enemy. I have some skills and want to follow and help, save soldiers, etc. How about it?" Li Yuan heard it and his eyes lit up. "Okay. There's a shortage of doctors like you in the military camp. If you can go, you will definitely be able to save many brothers. I will write a letter to let you go with your army." After saying that, he didn't even care that he was still hurt, and forced himself to write a seal of hand and hand it over to Lin Hao, allowing him to set off with the team in 3 days and go to the front-line army. Lin Hao was holding the letter, and his heart was filled with excitement. He knew that this was his first step from the country to a bigger stage. That day, he handed over the pharmacy to Xiao Chui, called several disciples, and told them to continue making cement and glass to ensure that the business in the village was constantly going on. He cleaned up some simple business and prepared to follow Li Yuan's people to go out. But just the day before the departure, Ma Zhang came to the door again. Zhang Dalian didn't know where to hear that Lin Hao saved the imperial army and wanted to go to the front line with the army. His eyes were so jealous that he was red. He had already hated Lin Hao so much that he couldn't sit still. He secretly found a group of gangs of traitors outside the village, intending to send Lin Hao a slap. In the evening of this day, Lin Hao was cleaning the medicine in the pharmacy and was about to come out tomorrow morning. He heard a rapid sound of footsteps coming from the entrance of the village. Xiao Chui ran in and said with a pale face, "Brother Lin, it's not good." Zhang Daiqian brought a helping hand over, holding a knife, looking like a good person, and said he was going to make a fortune with you. Lin Hao had a snail and Lima guessed that this goods were messing around again. He sneered, put down the things in his hand, and said in a low voice, "It's a good thing? Okay, I want to see how many pills he has. Go and open the back door of the pharmacy. Let's avoid it first and don't force it." Although Xiao Chui was so anxious, she still listened to what she said. Lin Hao took her out from the back door, walked to a high ground in the village, and looked away. Sure enough, Zhang Daiqian was carrying more than a dozen strange faces and rushed into the pharmacy. Seeing that the person was not there, Lima began to smash things, and his mouth was still sneering, "Lin Hao, you are so slimming and rolling me out. I thought it would be great to save a soldier. I will let you know who is the boss in this village today." Lin Hao looked at the scene and his heart was filled with fire, but he was not moved. He noticed that the few people on Zhang Daijia were dressed in shabby clothes and looked full of faces. They were probably not from the village, but probably were gangsters outside. In order to deal with me, this goods actually hooked up outsiders. It was really a hurry to jump into the wall. "Xiao Chui, go to the village entrance to find the people from Li Jun and tell them about this. Just say that someone is going to be against me and let them come over." Lin Hao explained in a low voice, with a cold light flashing in his eyes. Xiao Chui clicked her head and ran to report it quickly. Lin Hao quietly roamed to the side of the pharmacy, lifted a few stones and hid them on his body, intending to delay the time first. He deliberately shouted, "Zhang Daqian, if you bring outsiders to the village to deal with trouble, aren't you afraid of the court's pursuit? I've saved the army, please try it." When Zhang Daqian heard the sound, Lima followed the sound and saw Lin Hao alone. Lima sneered, "Survey? I will kill you first today. Who can control it? Brothers, give it to me." Those gangsters didn't say anything, and just came with a knife. Lin Hao had already prepared to hit the man in the wrist with a stone. He took advantage of the pain of the other party and hid on the side, and ran into the alley next to him, shouting, "Zhang Daqi, you are intimidating the gangsters, and you are sure to be sure. When the troops come, you will see how you die." Zhang Daqi was so angry that he jumped straight into his feet and chased after him, but Lin Hao was so familiar with the terrain in the village that he threw away them after a few twists. Just as he was panting and hiding behind a haystack, the sound of horse hoofs suddenly came from a distance, and Li Yuan's several people arrived from the way. "Who dares to be rude in the village? You can't die!" The leader shouted, and a long gun was snatched in his hand, directly urging Zhang Daqian to help others with someone. Zhang Dabao's face turned pale and said in a daze, I'm wrong. I'm just talking to Lin Hao, it's nothing different." "Speak? Come with bandits, are we blind?" The soldier sneered, and without saying a word, he directly ordered Zhang Daqian and the bandits to be blocked. Zhang Daqian was still trying to make a mistake, but when he saw the military card displayed by the other party, Lima was so scared that he didn't dare to ask for anything. Only then did Lin Hao walk out from behind the haystack, pat the soil on his body, and smiled and said to the soldiers, "Thank you so much, brothers, otherwise I really have to explain this tonight." The soldier slapped his hand and said in a deep voice, "Dr. Lin Shen is polite. If you save our army, what is this small matter? This helps people to get involved in a gangster, and you have to go back and have to review it." Lin Hao pointed at the head and glanced at the big money that was taken like a rice dumpling, feeling so happy. He walked to Zhang Daqian and said with a smile, "Zhang, why are you so miserable? You have said you don't go against me, but you don't listen. Now, you're going to do it yourself, right?" Zhang Daqian's face was blue and gritted his teeth and could not say a word, so he could only lower his head and admire it. When the villagers heard the silence, they came to watch the hottest scene. Seeing that Zhang Daqian was arrested, they applauded and shouted, "It's alive! I usually bully people, and I'm finally unlucky." Lin Hao ignored him and turned to Xiao Chui, "Please continue with Zhang Luo in the matter of the pharmacy. I will have to go with the army tomorrow morning. I will depend on you in this village in the future." Xiao Chui had a tiny in her eyes and said with a pointed finger, "Brother Lin, don't worry, we are in the village. When you arrive at the army, you have to be careful not to bully others." Lin Hao smiled and patted her on the shoulder, without saying anything more. That night, he packed up his things, and made a move to the frontline army through the relationship between Lin Ye and Li Yuan. As the sky was dawn, a team of people left the village slowly. Lin Hao was riding on the road and looked back at the pharmacy with glass windows at the entrance of the village, and a burst of blood surged in his heart. He knew that this was just the beginning, and the real challenge was still at the forefront. Not only were there fierce soldiers waiting for him to help his life, but there were also a bunch of enemy soldiers waiting for him to deal with it. And at this moment, a sudden hurried horsehoof sound came from the front, and a soldier rushed over and shouted in panic, "It's not good for the troops. The enemy has raided our defense line. Brothers can't stop and need support in urgent need of support." When Lin Hao heard this, he raised his eyebrows and said in his heart, "It's just right, my modern knowledge can be put on a great opportunity." Lin Hao was riding immediately and heard the soldiers in front of him urgently reporting the enemy's sudden attack. He raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled unconsciously at the corner of his mouth. He patted his horse's back and turned to Li Yuan beside him, "It's time for the troops to come. We will pass by this. Not only can we save people, but we may also be surprised by them." Although Li Yuan was not injured, he also had a glimmer of light when he heard this. He pointed. Okay. Dr. Lin, what's your idea? Even if you say it, you saved my life, and we brothers all hear you. Lin Hao was not polite, and then said in a low voice, since the enemy has broken out, the defense line will definitely be in a mess, and we cannot fight head-on. I have a way to let someone take me to see the situation of the soldiers, and then touch the enemy's bottom. Your people calm down first, don't rush to counterattack, and wait for my signal. Li Yuan was stunned. Although he didn't quite understand what Lin Hao's finality meant, he still responded. Lima sent several trustworthy men to protect Lin Hao and walked to the temporary camp behind the defense line. Along the way, the sound of horse hooves was rapid, and the air was filled with the smell of nitrification and blood. Lin Hao heard the shouts of killing from the front line from afar, and there were also sharp arrows breaking through the air. He had a lot in his heart. This battle was fierce and he must have suffered a lot of injuries. When I arrived at the camp, I was really full of soldiers, lying on the verge of 700% of them. Some slid their arms, and some had arrows stuck in their chests, and howling was endless. Hurry, carry the person over. Lin Hao jumped off the horse and began to point out without saying anything. Although there are not many medicines he brings, it should be used urgently. He let people burn the water, tear the cloth strips, clean the wound briefly, and then used bamboo tubes and fine lines to combine the wound, and pulled back several soldiers who were quickly extinguished from the ghost gate. The soldiers around were stunned, and some people couldn't help but whisper, "Why is this Dr. Lin so bad? I thought I would die for this injury, so I saved it." No, that person who had just broken his legs could speak, he was simply a god. Lin Hao heard these words and felt a little relieved, and he was still busy. After saving more than 10 people, he wiped his sweat, found a wounded soldier, and asked in a low voice, "What's the situation with the enemy? How many people are there? How are the attacks?" The soldier gasped and replied frantically, "Dr. Huishen, there are about 3,000 enemy troops. We sneaked in the darkness of the night. Our defense line was dispersed. Now we can only defend one mountain. They have archers, which makes us unable to lift our heads." After Lin Hao finished listening, his eyes lit up and his brain had an idea. He patted the soldier's shoulders and turned his head to Li Yuan's letter. "Tell the soldiers that the enemy archers are the key, we have to cut off their way first. Then let people prepare some dry firewood and oil. At night, I will take a few people to touch them and burn them to eat grass." Although he was half believing and half doubted, he saw Lin Hao saying it was right and did not dare to neglect it. He immediately went to convey it. That night, it was getting dark, and Lin Hao walked over the front of the enemy with several skilled soldiers and sneaked into the vicinity of their rear camp. Sure enough, the enemy's haystack was piled like a hill, and there were not many guards, so they probably had to go to the front line. "Run!" Lin Hao shouted softly, and several people quickly poured dry firewood and oil on the pile of grass, and ran away after the fire was fired. The fire suddenly blew up, making the sky red halfway through the sky. The enemy army established a group of troops. Some shouted there was a fire, some hurriedly put out the fire, and the rear was in a mess. Lin Hao took the trouble to withdraw his people and return to the defense line. Li Yuan had already received the message and immediately ordered a counterattack. The enemy army caught fire in the backyard, and the military collapsed. They were soon beaten by the Imperial army and retreated. At dawn, the enemy dropped hundreds of corpses, the wolf fled, and the defense finally calmed down. "Dr. Lin, this battle has taken you too much." Li Yuan took Lin Hao's hand excitedly, his eyes full of admiration. "The trick of burning grass is too extreme. The enemy will not fight, so how much energy have we saved?" Lin Hao smiled and raised his hand. "I mean, I will win the army. After the war is over, let's save people first, and there will be a tough battle behind it." In the next few months, Lin Hao followed the army to fight in 4 places, relied on modern first aid technology to save countless injured soldiers, and his reputation quickly spread. All the enemy soldiers heard that there was a Dr. Lin, and saving people was like a god, which made many people dare not fight easily when they heard that the Imperial army was there. At the same time, he also took time to teach the soldiers to repair fortifications with cement, and use glass as simple signal lenses to help the troops take full advantage in the battle. The war was finally pacified 6 months later. The Imperial Army won all the great victory, the enemy army surrendered, and the world regained peace. The news was sent back to the capital, and the Emperor Longyan was very upset and immediately issued an order to summon Lin Hao to earn the Divine Doctor by himself. When Lin Hao followed Li Yuan to the capital, the people along the way greeted him. Some shouted help, God, and some knelt on their heads, and the scene was so hot. He felt so happy, but he was still calm on his face. There was still a big thing waiting for him later. When he arrived at the Imperial Palace, in the Golden and Blue Hall, the Emperor smiled so hard that he couldn't hold his mouth when he saw Lin Hao. He opened his mouth and said, "Lin Hao, I heard that you are a doctor and a magical skill to help the army maintain peace. It is a country's ruin. Today, I have appointed you as a national teacher and in charge of medical and engineering affairs in the world. I hope you will continue to benefit me and the people of the world." Lin Hao heard this. Lima knelt down and thanked him, and the flowers bloomed in his heart. "Master, this is a high-ranking official in the court, with power in hand, so it will be convenient for you to fuck anything in the future." He expressed his respect on the spot. "Your Majesty, I will not be indebted to be holy. I have several skills that will make the dynasty stronger and the people live a good life." The Emperor was so excited that he asked, "What technology? Let's hear it." Lin Hao didn't sell the secret, and simply explained the method of making cement and glass, and mentioned the benefits of using cement to build roads and cities, and using glass as windows and utensils. He said that the Emperor's eyes lit up. He made the decision, "Okay. You are in charge of this matter and I will give you as much as possible to the manpower and material resources. If things can be accomplished, I will give you a marquee." As soon as this was released, all the civil and military officials in the court were shocked. Some were admired and some were jealous, but no one dared to object. After all, Lin Hao's reputation has long been spread all over the world, and even the Emperor believed it. Who can still say that it is not? In the next few years, Lin Hao was very busy. He first brought craftsmen to produce cement on a large scale, built official roads and city walls, and built the originally broken city into a solid soup, so even foreign enemies dared to easily invade. Glass technology has also been fully launched. Every household in the capital has used glass windows, which is bright and the people say it is a immortal hand art. What's even more amazing is that Lin Hao also designed a new capital. In line with the modern urban planning concept, he made the streets wide and straight, with clear divisions, complete drainage systems, and built countless high-rise buildings with cement and glass, which looked very fashionable from a distance. On the day the capital was built, the Emperor inspected himself and said, "This city is the best in the world. Master Lingua is really a god." The people were even more grateful. Some people set up a statue of Lin Hao in the city and went to worship every year, saying that he was a living bodhisattva. Every time Lin Hao hears these, although he says low tuning, low tuning, low tuning, he still feels happy in his heart. As for the matter in the village, he did not forget it. After the war was pacified, he went back to the village and found that Xiao Chui had already made the pharmacy business very prosperous. The villagers used cement to build new houses, and every household used glass windows, and life was more comfortable than that of the people in the city. Where is Zhang Daqi? He had been exiled to the border because of the gangsters, and he heard that he died of illness on the road, which became a joke. When Xiao Chui saw Lin Hao, her eyes were almost gone, and she took his hand and said, "Brother Lin, you are a Chinese teacher now. Why do you remember to come back to see us? People in the village are talking about you every day." Lin Hao smiled and patted her shoulder. "How can you not come back? This is my route. No matter where I go, I will never forget you. In the future, you will continue to manage the matter of the pharmacy. The court has given up silver. I plan to build a few more schools to teach the children in the village to read calligraphy, study medicine and handicrafts. Our village cannot be behind." Xiao Chui heard it straight, and the villagers were even more excited. Someone took Lin Hao to his house to eat, saying that he wanted to kill chickens and slaughter the sheep. Lin Hao could not recommend it, so he had to stay and accompany everyone to eat hot and hot. He also gave a few old towns a medical treatment. The scene was very warm. As for Li Yuan, after the war was pacified, he was sealed off the imperial army and became the top pillar of the court. His relationship with Lin Hao was so irritating that he would drink every time he met him, insisting on calling him brother. Lin Hao was not shy either. He often drank and chatted, and then gave some advice to the court to govern the dynasty better and better. After a few years, the world was ruled, the people lived in peace, and the imperial court was full of governments. All countries took the initiative to come to the court, saying that they should learn the magical skills of the country. Lin Hao looked at all this and felt satisfied. From a ruined person, he changed a time from a broken friend in his brain and handicrafts to a legendary figure who has become famous in history. That night, Lin Hao stood on the highest watchtower in Xindu City, looking at the brightly lit street below. His ears were the laughter of the people and the calls of the merchants, and the fragrance of vegetables was filled with the air. He long breathed out a breath and said in a low voice, "This time travel is worth it." Far away, smoke bloomed, illuminating the entire night sky and the smile on his face. He knew that this was the end he wanted. Not only did he stand at the top, but he also took everyone to a good life. This dynasty and this era are completely different because of his arrival. And the story ends here. It can be considered a roundabout way. Lin Hao's name is forever engraved in history and has become a legend in the mouths of later generations.